Why, hello. You're joining me for another look at... Yes, I've got the book. Better Call Saul. Series 6, or Season 6. Episode 5. Is that right? Yeah, it's called Black and Blue. I wonder why. Well, it's an interesting episode. Some bits of it kind of irritated me somewhat. Yeah, so I'll explain. We'll go through spoilers anyway. Got to do the spoiler warning because people are daft. It's YouTube after all this time. But I will be talking about plot details because that's really what this is. This is really talking about the plot. And again, this is more. Again, there's not a lot in this episode to push the plot forward. This is one of those classic Holding episodes where we do lots of character development, and Better Call Saul has sections, large tracks, where the plot moves at a glacial pace, and this is one of those ones. Not to say I didn't enjoy the episode, it's just after the last 4 episodes, which have been pretty, there's been stuff happening, we've kind of hit a slow one. This is a slow one. It opens with Kim being, she's nervous. She knows that Laylo's out there, so she blocks the door. And Jimmy sees this, but he doesn't. He doesn't know. She doesn't. She doesn't know. He still thinks that Laylo's dead. So at this point, he's ignorant. She hasn't told him. She's keeping it a secret. He doesn't need to know. I wonder how long, because he must know when he makes an appearance in Breaking Bad. He does actually talk about Laylo and Nacho. So we must assume that he knows at some point. Again, this is what we're looking for. Now you begin to look for the plot connections to the other show. Gus is interested in this because we see for the first time Gus being truly vulnerable. He's nervous, and you see in the previous episode where he was kind of exhausted by this, this pretense of hiding from everyone, and having to wear the bulletproof, stab-proof shirt and the gun and everything, and you can tell he's exhausted carrying this around. And he continues into this one. He's in his offices at Los Polos Hermanos, and he's tense. You can tell he's tense, and he's expecting something to happen. This is someone who is living on his nerves, and he's quite opposite to the Gus that we know in the previous outing in Breaking Bad. And this is interesting because we see somebody who is, you can see his vulnerability. He's expecting Laylo to strike. Now, we can deduce from this character, like I said, he's very vulnerable, very tense, making plans, and he's quite opposite to the Gus we see in Breaking Bad. So he must overcome his fear. There must be a moment where he becomes the invincible Gus that we know and love, the one that you think that you can't get to, that complete, locked down Gus. This Gus isn't that character yet. He hasn't got to that moment, and that's again Giancarlo Esposito is very he does a lot with very little. He does a lot with very little. But one of the more interesting, because this is all character studies. All of this is character. There's only a tiny little bit of plot at the end. We then cut to the Sandpiper storyline with Howard and Clifford and Erin Brill. The actress again appears in Mythic Quest on Apple Plus TV, which is funny. She plays quite an opposite character, which amuses me. which amuses me. She's played by Jessie Ennis, of course. But yeah, we're at the sandpiper thing, and they're doing this speech because the residents are like, they want the money now. They want the money now, and they're trying to calm them down. And you see Howard get up, and he talks to them, and he puts on a performance that isn't that far removed from Jimmy/Saul. He's slick. He knows. He brings them in, and you sit there for a minute and you go, wait a minute. Jimmy's been watching Howard. Howard all along has been this dark horse. You know, we think he's this kind of passive guy who's, just sitting there, Hamlin McGill, the son of the owner. You think that's who he is, but you see him being quite dynamic and doing all that stuff, talking to people and bringing them in, just like Jimmy does. And you go, wait a minute, Jimmy's been watching Howard. Howard is Howard is revealed in this episode to be a much more powerful character than we could ever realise. Again, we don't know who these people are. We do not know who Howard is, the same as we don't know who Kim is. And we see a bit more of Howard, because there is a confrontation between Cliff, Ed Begley Jr., drummer with Spinal Tap, and Howard, where he says, my son, I could see, and he explains what he's seen with the drugs and the prostitute, and Howard instantly clicks when he finds out that Kim was at the meeting. He goes, I've got a Jimmy problem. I've got a Jimmy problem, which is just brilliant, because Howard isn't stupid. Howard has never been stupid. I've always said he's the good guy. He's the innocent in all of this, and so it comes to pass. We see Jimmy getting these offices together, bringing back Francesca, and again the office isn't ready. She's dubious, but hey, money will solve that problem. But then he gets a call to go and see H.O. Ward. It's Howard at a boxing ring, and Howard challenges him to a fight. He says, look, I know whatever problem you've got, it's the old, let's put on the gloves and duke it out. And you're probably wondering, it is quite a bizarre scene, because we don't know anything about Howard, but over the years, that Howard's somebody who takes care of himself. He obviously boxes, with his shirt off. He's got a set of guns on him. He's somebody who takes care of himself, and again, he always comes down to somebody who's kind of buttoned down, but he's not. It's because he's a pugilist. And you see that with his performance in front of the Sandpiper residents. This is somebody who knows how to fight both verbally and physically. And they go at it. And you see the difference between the two men. Howard, he's trained in the art of boxing, whereas Jimmy is a scrapper. He'll step on your boots and hit you in the breadbasket. And that was to illustrate the different kind of person they are. Howard is very controlled, methodical. Jimmy's a scrapper. He cuts corners. He will cheat, and that will lead to him getting knocked down. And Howard says, I fear that you've taken my kindness for weakness. And this is the thing. He has been kind. He has been considerate. But again, he's been manipulated by everybody in this game. And then we find out that Howard is going to employ someone to follow Jimmy. Again, the end game. That's the interesting part, So Jimmy and Kim are going to have two lots of people tailing them. You've got Mike's people and Howard's people. How's that going to play out? But Howard is onto them because he's not stupid. I'm glad that they've done this. I was really pleased that they did this with the character, because it would have been silly to let all these things happen to him and not to react to it. And I think what they're doing, the writers have lulled us into a false sense of security with these characters, with Howard, with Kim. Again, we know nothing about her. And what did Howard find? What did Mike find out about her when he did his investigation? Who knows what's going on below the surface. And, but it's quite ominous because when Jimmy gets home, he tells her tells Kim what's happened. He said, I should have just walked out and left him there. And she said, no, you did the right thing because you know what's coming next, which sounded rather ominous. But I think they've completely underestimated Howard because he's watching them. He's watching them. He will be forewarned. We cut back to the safe house where Gus is holed up. And again, he's still... Mike says, look, this is a waiting game. Mike goes, approaching and sees these. Gus is scrubbing a tooth, using a toothbrush to scrub the bathtub. Again, this is somebody he's almost got OCD. He arranges things, he straightens things, he straightens his pen. This is someone who's methodical. A bit like Howard. Again, there's a lot of parallels in these characters. There's lots of character traits which are echoed. And there's a third person which we'll mention in a minute. We'll get to, who's also methodical. And then they go to the lab, where we find them in Breaking Bad, the meth lab under the dry cleaners. And Gus is pacing. He paces out and places his gun on the caterpillar track of the digger, because in his mind he's worked out how and where he's going to have his final confrontation with Lalo. In his head, he's worked it out because he knows what Lalo's up to. He knows what the next step is. This is mental chess. They're both playing off each other. They're both trying to figure each other. That's what he's doing, and he's pacing it out. So he knows exactly where to get the gun and fire, and that's what I took from that scene. There may be a different interpretation, but I see him playing mental chess with his opponent. And we cut to a bar in Germany. Everyone's speaking German. Did you get the question right about the first female astronaut? I did, because I knew all about that stuff back in the day. And Lalo turns up. He's wooing Marguerite Ziegler, the widow of the fella that designed Gus's underground lair. Do you remember he got shot in season 4, series 4, all those years ago? You got to remember, Lalo intercepted the phone call, didn't he? He knows about that lab. He knows where it is. You see, and so he's doing his due diligence. He wants to find out where it is. He's methodical, like Howard, like Gus. We're three characters, very similar character traits. And he woos her, finds out where she lives, breaks in, and is looking for clues when she returns. Now I thought we were going to have an incident, but with the old silencer, the gun with the silencer on. But little bear, he gave it away, the dog. But nothing, thankfully, came of it, and he got out of the window. Or did he? But he finds an instrument. It's like an award that Ziegler gets, which we see at the very opening being cast in epoxy. Reminded me of all those YouTubers who are killing the planet with their, I'm going to set this in epoxy. I know. I'm looking at you, Ben's Works. That was the foreshadowing at the beginning, was the award being set in epoxy, but I didn't know what the relevance was. But there's a label on the bottom. Obviously, it tells you where the award was made. So I guess Lalo's gone off to there to find out who commissioned the award. To find out one of his connections from the meth lab. We're spidering back from that web. So like I said, it was a bit of a glacial episode. We're jumping back again to events that happened in series 4, because the meth lab thing throughout season 5 just kind of went off the boil, didn't it? And that's what annoys me about this, is some of the pacing and some of the, some of the strands of the story feel a little bit forced. And this felt a bit forced, with Lalo going to Germany. You'd have thought he would have done that in series 5, but because he heard, on the phone about the lab, you'd thought he would have, him being a curious George, he would have worked, and the boxing ring thing. It was more of a metaphorical thing, wasn't it? Really, it wasn't a real boxing match, was it? I don't know. No, it was real. But there's some bits in it that I thought, just imagine if Walter and Gus had settled it in the boxing ring instead of what happened in Breaking Bad. Spoilers. So yeah, it's a bit of a holding episode. We're very, very, very slowly seeing all the elements coming together. And next week, who knows what will happen. Maybe Howard will get the warning and be able to preempt Kim and Jimmy. Maybe Gus will be able to preempt Lalo. Maybe the Kettlemans will donate their inflatable Statue of Liberty to Jimmy for his opening concern. Who knows? So many questions. Anyway, thank you for watching. I've been talking about Better Call Saul, Series 6, Episode 5, Black and Blue. The episode titles are all called something and something, aren't they? So Wine and Roses, Carrot and Stick, Rock and a Hard Place, Hit and Run, Black and Blue. Next week's episode is directed by Giancarlo Esposito. Funny enough, there you go. So that should be good. Alright, thanks for watching. There's only one more thing left to say. By now you should know what that is. And that is ta-da!